I hope that hosting companies all over are listening to this right now and rushing to see if they can improve their chatbots.
Let me ask you, are you the type of person that quickly starts packing up everything and running out the door, or are you waiting for the smell of smoke?
Something so often overlooked is aligning KPIs, and I don't mean company-wide, I mean at every level, with the success of your customers in the way that I was talking about.
It's really remarkable when you can have those moments of delight for a partner or a customer. Welcome to Impressive Hosting, where we uncover the core tenets of great WordPress hosting. I'm your host, Jesse Friedman. Before we dive in, remember to check out impressive.host. It's where you can comment on episodes, ask follow-up questions, and submit questions for upcoming guests. You'll also find all our links to follow, like, and subscribe wherever you listen. With me today is Aaron Campbell of hosting.com for part 2. We were having such a great conversation about vulnerability and building trust with customers and aligning ourselves with the success of agencies and our customers as well. And man, we were just cruising. That first episode went right by.
So fast. Thank you for having me back.
Yeah, thank you, Aaron. You know, what's funny is I was actually a few minutes late to the last episode because I was dealing with a fire alarm in my office, and this tends to come up every once in a while. Our producer John of the show, he knows this because he's heard it in the background, and so I was trying to deal with that, and I realized I had a question for you because the last time the fire alarm went off, I just kind of ignored it, and I sat there, and the people I was meeting with were quite concerned for me. I tend to be one of those people who ignores it until it's an actual emergency. You and I travel a lot, though, and I'm sure you've been to a hotel once or twice where the fire alarm has gone off. Let me ask you, are you the type of person that quickly starts packing up everything and running out the door, or are you waiting for the smell of smoke?
So I was in London just a few weeks ago, speaking at the WP London meetup, and in my hotel, the fire alarm went off, and I walked over to the phone and I called the front desk. I said, "Is this real?" And the answer was no. And so I hung up and I just waited until it shut off. So I have had enough false alarms from that I do not quickly pack up. And I kind of feel the direction you're headed here, Jesse, which is that those fire alarms, if they're not real when they're raised, we quickly lose trust in them. And that's where I'm at. If the room next to me was on fire, I'd be on the telephone checking to see if that was really the case rather than out the door and safely down the stairs.
That's exactly right. You nailed it, because you were just talking about in the last episode about how you had status.hosting.com signaling to people about how things were going. The new branding had caused a couple hiccups, and that's to be expected. It's a big project, but your customers aren't going to be patient about that. They expect everything to be working and operational. So a status.hosting.com page can help to inform the customer and be clear about what's happening. And so you had mentioned that maybe that makes some other people in the company a little nervous, like a salesperson who might be worried about the short-term repercussions. But what we touched on there is that you're establishing trust. You're building a place for people to understand where they can go to get accurate information, understand exactly what's going on. And so that also allows them to feel comfortable putting some of their most expensive or highest trafficked customer websites on your platform. And so, I think that the status page has become far more common these days, but I'm interested to think about ways that we could use something like that to actually leverage a better message to customers, maybe as a marketing tool, or even just, improving customer service.
That's what, so I think that the status page has become really standard. However, every company kind of runs that status page different. Some companies want to make sure that always shows green all the time, right? And it doesn't matter the reality. If they have to put something on the status page as soon as it's cleared up, that disappears like it never happened. And I think that doesn't build the kind of trust that we ultimately want to build. Finding the right balance on what hits that status page. If 2 customers out of hundreds of thousands are experiencing an issue, that's probably not something that we need everybody to be worried about. But at the same time, we want to be open about everything that really is an issue that could be affecting them. I would love it, I guess, kind of the simple way that I think about it is I would love it if any time one of our customers has some sort of issue that they think might be hosting.com's problem, whether they can't access their site or they're trying to log in and it's, giving them an error or whatever it is. If they check that page and there's nothing there, they know, hey, it's not hosting.com's problem. It's actually mine. And I don't think that many hosts out there have that level of trust in the actual transparency of their status page. And so I think that's one of those differences that ideally we will, again, we're playing the long game. We plan to be around for many. A2 Hosting's 21 years old as we do this rebrand to hosting.com. We plan to be around for a long time to come. And we want to build that trust knowing that that's going to be better for our customers in the future, which is going to be better for us bringing in more customers in the future. And we have to get a sales team that understands that vision and is on board with it for sure.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it makes me think about ways in which the status of your platform could be utilized in other ways. Like that status page exists and it's a very technical page. So I don't think that, it's made to be understood very quickly by even a novice, but I think the idea of going to that page is probably a little bit more advanced. I think that novice customers tend to show up at that when they Google something like, is so-and-so down? And then Google will push you to that and it shows you that bar. Which, by the way, on your point before, if I get there and whether it's up or down and it's just green across the board, that, either you are the greatest company of all time or something's a little fishy there, right?
Yeah, something's fishy always when I see all green all the time.
Right. But, what'd be interesting is, I think it would be a really bold and interesting statement to see a hosting company put that like in the top of their core website, like their front of their marketing page, like at the top right or something like that, to really just establish that level of trust right out of the gate.
Yeah, that would be really interesting to bring that really front and center like that. We do, in fact, surface it in, logged in pages in our control panel in those kinds of areas, in the hosting control panel. In our WordPress control panel, because we do want to bring that kind of transparency to customers, even if they're not finding that status page. Because like you said, so to me, the status page, it's important. It's important that it has the right info. I want to bring that info to our customers whenever we can, wherever they're at. But the main reason it continues to live off the site somewhere else is because if the absolute worst of the worst happened and like all kinds of stuff around us went down, that lives on totally different infrastructure, DNS, etc. So that could still be up. But bringing that
because
to...
what good is it if it's in your core
exactly.
infrastructure and
hey,
hosting.com
is down. Check their status. Oh, that's down too, right? That's not very useful. But bringing that to potential customers, to prospective customers on the site pre-purchase, that's very interesting. That's something to really think about.
Yeah, I think it would definitely send a very strong message to customers arriving at the site that you believe in your infrastructure and you believe in good communication. So those of you thinking about this at home, if anybody ends up doing this on their hosting page, let me know because I'd love to see it.
Yeah.
And what you mentioned is that you weren't just using the status to demonstrate how things were going with the actual platform, but you were actually talking about support queues. And I'll tell you a little story because I was thinking about this myself the other day. My wife had to go to the emergency room, and just spoiler alert, she's totally fine, nothing to worry about, but she was having back spasms that were so severe that her legs were going numb. So we said we had to go to the emergency room. It wasn't like she was bleeding from a wound or something that we had to just call 911. So we took the time to actually call some local ERs and see what their wait times were. And so we settled on a highly rated ER that we've been to many times before that said it was a 2-hour wait, about what we expected. We got there, and there's absolutely no information. There's no informational pieces. There's nothing that helps you understand where you are in the queue, how long it's going to take. The people who are helping you by assessing you and everything else are behind, bulletproof glass, and they're not out there on the floor. They're not talking to you. And I'll tell you, we got there at 7:30 at night, and then it was 11:30 at night. Then it was 2:30 in the morning. Then and this whole time we're thinking to ourselves, could we have a better experience if we went somewhere else? Could we be seen faster? And you get stuck and trapped because of the lack of information they're giving you, mixed with the fact that you don't know if you're going to get anything better anywhere else. So then if we were to depart at 12:30 in the morning and go somewhere else and start all over again, maybe our number gets called as we were walking out the door. So you get
am I now
trapped.
1 hour away from being called, but it's a 2-hour wait at the other place?
Exactly,
for sure.
right. And so that unknown becomes unbelievably frustrating. And I'll tell you something. We ended up it took us till 4:30 in the morning to so that was like 9 hours of sitting in chairs to actually go back and be seen. And of course, we're empathetic with the doctors. It's not the doctor's fault. They have unbelievable number of patients. I didn't see one of them just sitting around reading a magazine. They're working hard, but it was the lack of communication with us that created a scenario where we said to ourselves the whole time, we're never coming back here. Like, even if it's a life or death situation, we're rerouting that ambulance, because it created such a frustrating memory for us, and it's now instilled in our brains. And so obviously far less emergency related, but like when people care about their websites, they care about their customers being successful, having clear communication around those wait queues can be so hugely helpful. And so I'm curious, like, how did that work out? Did you notice that like it was like kind of auto balancing because the live chat was shorter than the phone calls or whatever it might be, and all that? Or was it mostly just helping people feel at ease? Like, how did it work out, being transparent like that?
Whether it auto balanced or not, I'm not the right person. I wasn't keeping that close of an eye on every one of our queues. But setting that expectation is huge. And like, you got a 2-hour wait expectation. That is not a short wait. But that was fine because you knew what it was going to be. An interesting thing, actually, when I was at PressConf, I was talking to a number of people about their expectations for support responses, for chat, for phone, for ticket, and pretty much across the board. Chat's an easy example. So some people said that their expectation for chat support is an instant response. They expect that when they kick off the chat, there's going to be a person there immediately. All the way down to some people saying, I would wait, 10 minutes for someone on chat because I can be doing other stuff while I'm doing that. That doesn't bother me, which is admittedly a really great take. If all of our customers had that, that would be fantastic. But the truth is, a lot of times, if there's a real problem and something's down, you're less patient than that. But every single one of those people, when they gave me the max time they would wait, I increased that time. I said, now what if you clicked the chat button and it said, for those immediate people, it said it's going to be a 3-minute wait. Would you be okay with that? They're like, yeah, I could do 3 minutes. And for those people that said 5 minutes, I said, what if you got on and it said it's a 10-minute wait? They're like, I could do that. And setting that expectation really changed how long they were willing to wait. And it didn't shorten the wait times. It just let them have a more realistic picture of what exactly. So I think that's what we want to do. And I mean, as far as that being on our status page, that's because if support isn't working the way that you expect it to, that's just like any other part of our business not working the way you expect it to. But my hope is not necessarily that it auto balances the queues, although that would be probably great for our people if it did. But my hope is that it makes the customers happier by giving them the kind of information that you were missing at the ER. By just telling them, hey, look, you were saying in the case of a life-threatening ambulance thing coming in, you would maybe reroute. Well, the truth is, maybe they got in 2 loads of ambulances that came in the back door and people got pushed in front of you. If you'd have seen that somewhere, you'd have been like, oh, there was a car wreck and ambulances came in with injured people. Okay, we'll wait until those people are seen. But you didn't have that info at all. So that I want to share that info.
Yeah, I think what we're getting into here, which is something I've been contemplating a blog post about, is like the revisiting of delightful experiences. I remember years and years and years ago, we used to talk about this so heavily, that there was opportunities to delight in the way in which you built your products or launch your website, or even having little Easter eggs on your blog or whatever. And so what you're doing is talking about taking a stressful situation and turning it into one where you can actually impress the customer, and that is going to stick with them longer than anything else. And I think there's 2 things that really stick out in my mind when I'm trying to analyze whether or not I want to do phone support or live chat or whatever. I often immediately go back to the worst experiences I've had. So calling phone support, one of the more frustrating things for me is when you call and it's the worst hold music you've ever heard. All right. And it's like, I forget the term for it with audio, like it's compressed to the point where it's like crumbing, and it's elevator music. It's all
compressed and clipping constantly, and
yeah. And then it interrupts you and tries to sell you on something while you're waiting. And it's so funny to me because you are telling someone to wait during a stressful situation, and now you're bugging them to the point where, I was sitting in this ER, and one of the things that was most frustrating about it was that there was this woman who was on the phone with her family talking at a volume that acted as if everyone in the room was in the conversation. And so that little tiny thing just added a little bit of extra frustration to the experience. And so I often wonder why people who are designing these phone call waiting systems aren't employing some kind of stress relieving situation. Play sounds of ocean waves crashing on the beach, or like give me a moment to have a little meditative, directed meditation, I'm joking around here, but at the same time, there's opportunities for improvement there. And then the other thing too is that with live chat, the thing that I go to is immediately is that, can I refresh the window? Can I walk away from this window? Can I, you know what I mean? Like, am I going to am I not going to hear it because I'm off on another tab and it's not going to ding me? Like, what it should have for me is like a little, hey, we're going to be with you in 2 minutes. Feel free to go browse the internet, do whatever you want. We'll ding you. If you want to test the ding, here's a button, ding. Okay, you heard it. Like, these are things that would help me to feel confident in extending that wait time. And I think if you combine that with what you're talking about, you're really creating an experience that you're really delighting that customer.
These are some great ideas. I hope that hosting companies all over are listening to this right now and rushing to see if they can improve their chat bots or their chat windows and such. But the other one that you didn't list that drives me crazy with chat support is when you've waited 10, 15 minutes and you have gotten distracted with another tab and you're like, oh yeah, I got to check in on that. You check in on it. They had answered, waited 60 seconds for you and went, well, since I'm not hearing from you, I'm closing this chat, and they're gone. It's like, I waited 15 minutes and you couldn't wait more than 60 seconds. And so I think that even without some of the cool, impressive stuff that you're talking about, like, hey, test the ding, which that sounds fantastic to me. Even just how you then process those chats. Do you give the person enough time to get back to you since you gave them enough time to get distracted away? And a lot of that is just, how do you go about training your team and setting up the the rules and the procedures to make sure that you're putting customer first. And that's sometimes a bummer because, our support team needs to be able to handle as many customers as they can. And sometimes at saying, hey, I need you to hold off on this chat twice as long while they're not responding to you. That's not the best experience for our chat people, but that's the best experience for the customer. And that's where our focus needs to be. And we have to adapt our internal mechanisms to match that.
I think that goes back to what we were talking about before with the host aligning itself with the success of the customer, because those 60-second I'm going to wait windows is probably because that happiness or not happiness, that's what we say at Automatic, that customer support rep has probably a quota of how many times they have to get through tickets in that day and how fast are they closing them, all that stuff. And so if they can game the system by getting out of that one as fast as possible because no one responded, that's one more completed chat in their queue. And so your goals around how many of these things can you answer gets morphed and mutated into, how fast can I get out of this situation? Whereas if you're aligning yourselves with the customer and focusing on NPS scores or other things like that, then you might have a higher likelihood of really being there for the customer.
I think something so often overlooked is aligning KPIs, and I don't mean company-wide, I mean at every level, with the success of your customers in the way that I was talking about. So for support folks, so often you're right, like those KPIs are like number of I guess tickets or whatever answered in X amount of time. But maybe what that KPI should be is some sort of balance of the NPS or the ratings that they get, along with, weighting the tickets that they actually had to respond on, or maybe it's back and forth responses in that amount of time, or, there are all these things, and it makes it way more complex to figure out what that KPI should be. But I think that if you're not aligning that with the success of your customer, you're missing something valuable, and you're teaching your employees and kind of beyond that, your company as a whole, to accomplish this thing instead of your actual goal of customer success.
Yeah. Yep. One of the things that we're lucky about with WP Cloud is that because of the way that we're going to market and helping hosting companies with the amount of work we do to manage the platform, the stack, keeping everything up to date, doing all this on behalf of the hosting company, plus with our uptime scores, we're eliminating so many of these we're eliminating so many of these support requests that are creating the most stress in people's lives when things are broken, when things are down, things like that. And I think it returns back to this idea that is if you're functioning at your highest level and providing services at that level, you're able to then turn your attention of the same amount of people you have from support and the same amount of effort that they would be applying can now go towards their success rather than troubleshooting. So they're now freed up to spend less time on my site's broken or my site's slow, and how do I set up a newsletter, or how do I sell something, or how do I become more successful? And I think that's in alignment with what you're saying, with what your company is working on too, as well, is that you create these the understanding and the KPIs, and you do all these things to understand how you can better support your customers by keeping your ear to the ground and understanding exactly what they need. And it's funny because you had mentioned in the last episode, the differentiation that we need to make when we're segmenting customers between novice and advanced. And we talked about the novice customer will probably want some understanding of what it is that they're going to be able to accomplish and that their goal is actually going to be achieved. Whereas a more advanced customer just wants to know where the button is that they need to press to clear the cache or something like that. And it got me thinking, because you had mentioned those novice users or the advanced users may not need to see multiple designs before they launch something, or see design patterns or whatever. And it reminded me immediately of my old agency days, where the struggles that the agency was dealing with in managing the end customer's expectations, we're thinking what we would do is we would design like 3 comps, right? And then we'd show them to the customer and let them choose, because it made no sense to go down the path of fully building out a website before checking in with the customer and saying, are we on the right track? Is this what you like? Is this what you want to see? We can talk and joke about how like everybody would always design 3 comps and you'd spend 90% of your time on the first one, 9% of your time on the second one, and 1% of the time on the third one, and they'd always choose the third one.
Yep.
But it's funny because it's like when you think about working with agencies and aligning yourselves with them, you can also learn a lot about how they go to market and solve problems for their customers, and then apply it to the needs of those novice customers. And so I'm curious, there's a long way of saying, like, as the head of product strategy at hosting.com, are you keeping a book of agencies or customers that you have your finger on the pulse of what they're going through? You're checking in with them, showing them new features. How does that work?
I 100% am keeping a book of agencies and customers that I reach out to, I give feedback from, I talk to regularly. It's been fantastic over like the last year. Corey Miller came on board and has really been helping me do a lot of kind of, I guess, interviews with all these agencies to get feedback and information, and then from customers to get that information as well. And I think, to your point, there is a ton that we can learn from agencies to solve things for those other customers, right? Like you were talking about giving 3-up designs, having the customer choose one before proceeding on with any work on that. We can do the same kind of thing for a customer that's just trying to add a contact page to their site. We can be like, hey, do you like contact page A, B, or C better? And when they pick one, you can be like, okay, now you can customize this and adjust it and tweak it, or now we can collect the contact info that we're going to fill into it, or whatever that is. But agencies are already doing that work for their customers. So we don't necessarily need to do that, but we need to support them in doing that. And that's a little bit kind of one step removed, but making sure that we're giving them the tools to do that is another focus. How do we make it so it's easy for them to take these 3-up designs, show it to a potential customer, and then ignore the 2 that they didn't pick and simply plow ahead with the other one with as little wasted time as possible. And so that's what we're constantly trying to gather from them. Hey, can you just take us through a process with a new customer, and let's just talk about how long each of these steps takes. And when you see one that you're like, wow, that's a long time for that, let's see what we can do to help you do that faster, easier, more efficiently.
That's very cool. Plus, you get the added benefit that agency feels heard. We actually just recently did this with WP Cloud. There was a feature that a partner of ours asked for, and Barry, the head of systems at Automatic, came into the conversation in Slack. It took a few moments of time for them to just describe what it was that they wanted on this new feature. And while Barry's listening, he's writing code in the background. He already launched the thing, moments later, and deployed it as a beta test. And it not only, impressed the customer into the partner into believing more into, what WP Cloud can offer, but it really demonstrated that we're here for them the same way that, you're talking about being there for agencies. So it's, I think it's really remarkable when you can have those moments of delight for a partner or a customer. Yeah.
To be super clear, not everybody has a Barry with them, but also, I think that basic point of not just getting feedback, but actioning that feedback and getting back with the customer to let them know. Now, yours all happened in one immediate loop, which is fantastic.
Yeah, sure.
But then getting back to that customer to say, hey, we solicited info from you. We worked on that info. We accomplished the thing. Here, go use it. That loop really makes them feel heard. And that's important because we want to be listening to them. And the more they feel heard, the more they want to talk to us, which is great. It's like a little self-fulfilling, self-propelling circle there, which is fantastic.
Yeah, I like that.
But it's only if you do that action step. If you miss on that, you lose their trust instead of gaining it.
Yeah. All right, we're right at the end of this episode, but before I go, I just want to ask you, because I feel like you're the type of person who would have your finger on the pulse of this. What are you doing with AI? Are you implementing it? Are you building it into all the pieces of the puzzle? Are you kind of giving it the customer the choice of how to use it? What's going on?
Okay, so there's two hats that I wear on this. There's the Aaron hat, where I'm a little bit skeptical of some of the AI. I've seen a lot of the blunders that it makes, and I never want to see our trust eroded by poor information coming from some massive language model that we, partially control, but not fully. And then there's the product hat that I wear, where it is so exciting to have some potential to do things that frankly would have taken way, way more effort before. And so I think that my biggest, like where I am at the moment, it's really trying to identify the places that we can most benefit from AI without sacrificing any of our customers' trust. A great example of that, we rolled out last year in what we called intelligent performance for WordPress sites, where you could improve the performance of your WordPress site with essentially a single click. And in the background, there was a lot of machine learning happening to be able to assess what plugins you were running and what your traffic loads were like, and all these things, what might be cacheable and what might not, to come up with potential like configurations that would work best for your site. But we put in checks and balances where we took a screenshot of the site and tested its performance, and then tested it again with a few different configurations, screenshots. We could compare those and make sure that it wasn't way faster because you were getting a blank screen, and those kinds of things, right? AI to really take you to the next level, but guardrails to make sure that the trust is always upheld. Because I'd rather come back to a customer and be like, hey, we tried to increase the performance and really couldn't. Here, contact us and let's have a person look at it. Rather than, hey, your site is so much faster now. And they go there and it's like, well, yeah, because only half of it is loading. And so that's where I'm at. There's so much excitement, but I want to take it with caution to make sure that we're always putting our customer first, rather than just getting excited about how cool it could be.
That makes sense. I actually moderated a panel at CloudFest on AI, and I had a chat GBT voice. Were you actually at that one?
I only got to stay in about half of that, and then somebody started talking to me, and I wanted to take them out of the room so I wasn't interrupting you all. But that was really fun. But a few of the things in there are exactly what I was talking about, where it asked some questions, and like the panelist had to be like, well, that's not actually quite true about me, but to answer the question, like, here's that. Like, I want to make sure that all that stuff is essentially like fact check. But that was a fascinating panel.
Well, thanks. And it was fun, and it was designed to demonstrate the value of AI currently in the mood that we're in right now, because there were times where it was like, whoa, that's so cool. It's talking. It has a personality. It gave me a little sass, Miriam's title had been updated like hours before the panel, and it had gone and figured that out and like gave her updated title when she was introduced. But then like halfway through, maybe before or after you left, it went completely nuts and lost the thread and was asking questions over again and wasn't listening. And so it was like a perfect demonstration of like, there's these moments where it's like remarkable, almost miracle, like amazing things that it can do. But then it's also built in a way that's kind of fragile and seems to not just have all the pieces in the right place yet. And it can crumble pretty quickly. So I like what you're doing. You're taking a methodical approach to deploying AI in a way to make sure that you're not sacrificing the trust your company's working so hard to build with its customers.
Exactly.
Yeah, cool. Well, thank you so much for another great episode, Aaron. As always, it's a real pleasure getting to hang out with you. I hope I see you in another event soon. If anybody's at a WordCamp or anything, look for Aaron. He's always wearing the same style hat, if not a different color. You can pick him out of a crowd. Very cool. Thanks again, Aaron.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of Impressive Hosting, where we uncover the core tenets of great WordPress hosting. Do you have a follow-up question for today's guest, thought or comment on anything we talked about, a future guest suggestion, a hosting horror story? What do you think makes great WordPress hosting? All your comments shape this show. Drop them on impressive.host. We also appreciate you following us on social media and subscribing to the podcast on your favorite platform. Finally, do check out our list of open source projects that need support at impressive.host. Whether it's code, community, or cache, you can make a difference. See you next time.